Tonight on The Al Denson Show, join Al and his guests, speaker and postmodern pastor Dave Edwards, Goatee Records recording artist Jeff Dio, Jeff Calhoun, and the Al Denson Show Band. Now, here's your host, Al Denson.
Hey! Welcome to the Al Denson Show. My name is Al Denson, and guess what? On this show today, we're going to talk about frustration. How many of you guys have ever been frustrated in your life before? Raise your hand. That's what I figured. Well, listen, I'm going to do my best to try to frustrate you right now. I want you to follow me in your head, help answer this question. There's three people. They go to a hotel. They check in, right? They get there. The guy at the front desk says, it'll be $30. Well, all three of these people are going to be there for a second. So they look at each other and say, let's just all stay in the same room. That'd be $10 a piece. So they say, okay. So one guy gives $10, $2. So they take all three $10 bills, hand it to the guy. Bellman comes up, gets their bags. They go upstairs. They get in the room. Well, the bellman puts the bags in the room. He walks out. He's going downstairs thinking, those cheapskates, man. I helped them get their bags up here. Those guys didn't give me nothing. He goes down the front desk, and the bellman tells that guy, he says, those three guys, man, they're just horrible, man. They didn't tip me or anything. The guy says, it's my fault. I messed up. I charged them $30 for the room when I should only charge them $25. So he gives him five $1 bills. He says, take this money back up to those guys and give them their money back. So sure enough, you know, this bellman's going up there. He's thinking on his way up there, he's thinking, these guys probably won't tip me again. There's only three of them, so they can't split this $5. So he takes two of the dollars out and he sticks it in his pocket. So now he's got $3 left. So he says, okay, this will work. So he knocks on the door. He says, sorry, we overcharged you. Here's $3 back. Well, the guy said, oh, cool, that's $1 a piece. So he gives $1 back to each one of them, shuts the door, and the bellman goes back downstairs. Now, the question I have for you is, they paid $10 for the room, but they got $1 back, right? So that would be $9. And there's three guys in there, so 9 times 3 is $27. And then the bellman, he kept the other $2, right? So 9 times 3 is 27, plus the $2 he kept is 29. But they paid $30. Where's the other $1? You see, times of frustration like this one you're having right now, because you can't figure out where that other $1 went. Now, I won't come back at the very end of the show and tell you where the $1 went, but listen, if we don't learn how to deal with frustration, it can lead to a lot of things that are a whole lot more serious. So we went into public schools and asked kids the question, how in the world do you normally handle frustration? And here's what they had to say.
Sometimes I'll take it out on other people, like I don't have a right to do that, but I do. I just totally blow up on them.
Before I was saved, I always took out my anger fighting.
When I get frustrated at people, I normally go to my room and talk to people about my frustration, and then I get it settled down.
I either completely go off on somebody, which I try not to do, or I just completely keep quiet and I separate myself from people and just kind of back out.
Hey, let's take a quick test. I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate your frustration level when these things happen to you. Here they are. 1 means, hey, I'm not frustrated at all. 10 means, man, I am totally frustrated. Here it is. How about in this situation? When you oversleep and you're late for class or miss the bus. Where are you? 1 to 10. Okay? I'll give you another one. When you can't, when you get to your locker and you can't get the thing to open. How do you feel? 5. Okay, listen to this. When the test you thought you were having tomorrow actually ends up happening today. Big time. When you forget your lunch money and you ain't going to eat lunch. Okay, hold on. When you find out that today are pictures at school and you look like a bummer. Okay? Hold on. When you get ready for the big date on Friday night and your dad says, where do you think you're going? You're not getting the car. Yeah, I understand. You know what the truth is, man? Y'all keep going, 10, 10, 10. Hey, we live in a frustrating world, and we're going to talk about how in the world do we handle frustration. And we got a great round table coming up with a really good friend of mine, Dave Edwards. So don't miss a thing. We'll be right back here on the Al Denson Show. Yeah.
I get really mouthy, or before I got saved, I'm still kind of this way, but God's working with me. I get very violent, and I, do stuff.
You just kind of you just want to scream sometimes because you don't know what to do, and you just gotta ask God, just take all the anger and the frustration that you can just be able to get throughout the days.
When you do get frustrated, and what we do is when we get frustrated, we need to say, hey, we're getting frustrated here, but how is the Lord working in us to turn that frustration into good?
Welcome back to the Al Denson Show. You know, we're sitting here talking about frustration, and I decided to name this is the table of frustration right here, guys, because we're just going to talk about why in the world we have so much frustration. I want to introduce these guys to you. Right over here, this represents actually the parents. This man's name is Lamar Slaves from Dallas, Texas. Man, he's been in ministry like forever. In fact, this guy was the first guy that gave me a chance to sing many, many years ago, and no one else would let this snotty-nosed little kid come in and sing. He said, yeah, I'll take him. Now, he got ran out of that church, and he had to go to another church. But, hey, I've been singing at all the different churches he goes to all the time, so it's been fun. But he's a parent, great wife, got a bunch of kids. But the nice thing is, if you're a parent out there, you understand what this guy's gone through as well, because there's no such thing like frustration for your kids sometimes and just being married with a household. Then we got this guy right here, Dave Edwards. Now, he's one of the most sought-after speakers in America. He's got a brand new book called Living Christ Character from the Inside Out. He just simply called it Lit. And man, he's in demand big time, and he's come up with incredible concepts because somehow he can take what seems complicated sometimes and make it where you can take it, swallow it, and digest it and say, now I understand it. So he's incredible. You're going to love him when we get done. And then my good old friend here, he's 74 years old, Pastor Charlie Sharp. I think he's still my friend. I just played a joke on him before we came out here, so we'll find out. But he runs a recovery center up in Northeast Missouri, pastor of a church that has one of the greatest insurance companies in America right there in Kansas City. Y'all do me a favor. Please welcome the frustration table right here. Yes, the table of frustration. Now, Dave, I got to start with you. You have one of the best definitions of frustration I've ever heard. Go ahead and share it with us.
My working definition for frustration is anytime your expectations and your realities clash. Anytime you expect one thing to happen and the exact opposite takes place, in the middle of that, frustration is created.
So why, as a society, do we get frustrated so bad?
Well, because anytime we have something set in our mind, like for instance, anybody ever been frustrated in traffic? Do we have any drivers at all? Anybody? Few of you? Yeah, like when you plan to leave point A and arrive at point B at a certain time and you get behind someone who drives with their blinker on for 40 miles for no apparent reason, and you want to go, we don't want to know where you're going to turn, we want to know when. Anybody been frustrated in traffic?
Absolutely.
And you're just getting, all the horn blowing and the cruel gestures and and that's just getting out of the church parking lot. And so
yeah, but when we talk frustration, so many people get wound up in frustration. What are things we can do to get ourselves out of that frustrated mode back into some peaceful life real quick?
Well, frustration many times comes also from lack of patience. It's exactly.
Yeah, but I heard a guy tell me, whatever you do, don't ever pray for patience.
Well, but you really need to pray for patience.
I'm frustrated now.
Well, but because we do expect things, and more we are expecting things that in many cases are unrealistic. And it's kind of, that turns out to be a dream, and that's not all bad. But when we a lot of frustration comes from selfishness, a lot of frustration comes from just wanting something right now, which is our generation in which we're living. Our society today is the microwave generation, and we want it, and we want it right now.
What happens when we choose the wrong response to frustration?
Well, it's almost like frustration is the opposite of the fruit of the Spirit. When we want instant gratification, when we want a meistic attitude in our own lives, when we're not willing to have patience, anytime we stray away from those things that the New Testament tells us are the way a believer ought to live, it's the way the Spirit lives through us, the only thing we can do is be frustrated because we're not living the life the way Christ called us to live the life.
Right. And here's what also happens. It's anytime your expectations, your realities clash, it's easy to start to believe a lot of really negative things. Like, for instance, if you've spent your whole high school career at a high school and then you get uprooted and you got to do your senior year at some foreign school and you got to make friends and start all over again, it's easy in that moment to believe that God's unfair, that He doesn't care, that your parents don't get you, that God's angry at you. And during times of frustrations, you're going to think all kinds of crazy things about God and yourself, and you're going to feel all kinds of crazy things about God and yourself. And the rule in frustration is it's okay to think that stuff, it's okay to feel it, but it's not okay to believe it. And what happens to a lot of students is they get into frustrating situations where, man, the home front's like World War III, and it's easy to believe, man, God doesn't care, and start to think God doesn't care. But what happens is when a student starts to believe that and lets those, what I call lies of frustration, drop into their belief system. And then that frustration is a season. It'll end. It's a chapter. It doesn't last forever. And so when that season ends, what happens is that student comes out bitter and cynical and jaded, because if you believe everything that you feel,
yeah, but sometimes life shoots situation after situation.
Right.
Situation. It's just like shooting bullets at you, going, man, I can't take anymore. Well, isn't there some forms of fair frustration?
Well, frustration is not really for the real Christian, at least not long last. We should resolve the matter and say this, and this is the thing that I've had to do in my life a number of times, because to say the least, I have been frustrated. Okay. But I've had to come to the place of realizing that it's a trial often that I'm going through, something that God is allowing me to go through to produce or bear fruit, as Lamar said. It's something to bear fruit. And if I don't get it right, the sad part about God's tests, if we flunk them, we have to take them over. You don't just move on to the next grade.
God's not a pass-fail God.
No, we have to say, I'm going to have to go through that again. And I get tired of going through it, so I finally say, Lord, you're trying to show me something. You're trying to say something in my life. Yeah. It may even be some things that's unfair, but nevertheless, every unfair thing that happens to us, we can learn from that.
And the thing is, we only see often right now. And God sees right now and tomorrow and the next day and on out there. Right. He sees the result of what that dealing with that frustration can lead to in our lives. And we don't see that. We just want to be at peace and not have frustration right now. And God says, look, you need to work through this, come to a biblical, scriptural-based answer, and then move on with your life. Yeah. And it'll mean big stuff for you down the road.
Yeah, you can't throw your fit. You can't throw a fit out of frustration. I mean, you can't just react. You can't react and throw a fit and whine and stomp and go, because that won't end the chapter of frustration, because it's God ordered. God set it up for you to go through it so that you'll come out better off than when you went in. And so you always have to keep that in mind, that God uses frustration as a tool to shape His men and women.
Okay, well, how come some people, help me understand this, how come some people will go through, let's say the same two people go through this exact identical situation. One of them comes out saying, well, it's cool, man. The other one says, man, that frustrated the snot out of me. How come people respond differently in different situations in regards to being frustrated?
Well, they're at a different place in their life, and especially their life and their walk. If we're talking about Christian
Does that mean they don't care?
No, not at all. It means that they've just learned to deal with things. I used to have a great, really a bad temper. And when things would go wrong and I would begin to get frustrated, I would get angry. I didn't just take it out on frustration. I would get angry, and I found out that the Lord was really trying to deal with me and was dealing with me. Right. That I needed to get past that and be able to deal with the problems of my life.
Can frustration lead to sin?
Well, I think it can. But I think also frustration, how you handle it is what leads to sin. But in my own life, I've become very frustrated sometimes when I've missed God. When I've sought God's direction and for whatever reason decided to do my own thing, and as I head down that path, boy, you talk about frustration when you're out of God's will and out of step with Him. Everything you do turns to frustration. Yeah. So it's a tool that God uses in our life to get us back to where we need to be.
Right, and frustration can also, especially in the life, of anybody really, young adult especially, can also be an excuse to do something crazy. Like if the home life is frustrating because expectations, your realities clash, and students will go, well, if my parents weren't so crazy, I wouldn't be drinking. And if my teachers weren't out to get me, I wouldn't have a drug problem. But our life is what we choose it to be. And this is what we have to guard against in the middle of frustration, is that you don't let frustration be an excuse to sin and to do something destructive to your mind or to your body.
Yeah, well, and frustration a lot of times comes from us doing something really wrong in the beginning and then getting caught. And then we get all frustrated and angry because we're trying to make up excuses why we did this, or trying to pretend like that we really wasn't doing anything wrong to start with. and we get caught at what we're doing, and then we're all frustrated because of it.
Yeah, so we got all these viewers watching, and we've already established that every single person watching this show deals with frustration. Right, so then how do we help them get past being frustrated when they're right in the middle of it?
Well, I would say you always have to remember that if you do something crazy in the middle of frustration, if you compromise in the middle of frustration, that it prolongs the process. It just makes the frustration season of your life longer, and you miss the blessings of God. And that frustration is not all bad, because it's in the middle of those moments that God has blessings. I was diagnosed with dyslexia. I couldn't read in junior high, and just learned how to read in high school, really. But in the middle of all that, I started to draw and paint, and I found this ability to do art out of that moment of frustration. Yeah. And so in every season, in every moment of frustration, whether it's major or minor, whether it's something at school, something at home, or just frustration with how you look and you have a zit on your forehead and you feel like a unicorn, or whatever, you always have to remember that there's one thing you have to do. You always have to request courage, that God would give you the courage to stay. Because here's what happens. A lot of people get into frustration. They go, man, God's not answering my prayer. He's not coming through, and they click off from God. Yeah. And they go off. This is why divorce rate is over half. This is why runaways are up. They just click off and get out. And so in the middle of those frustrations, you have to, if nothing else, get on the end of your bed or at the end of your chair and say, God, just for today, I choose to stay with you. Mm-hmm. I choose to stay with you in my thoughts, that you're good, in my heart, that you have my best interest in mind, and where you have me. I'm not going to run.
That's good stuff. Now listen, we're talking about frustration. We're going to come back and wrap this thing up in a minute, but I want you to meet a new musical artist. You're going to love this guy's name's Jeff Dale. So do me a favor, don't go away. We'll be right back here on the Al Denson Show. So hang in there with us.
I am very easily frustrated because I hate school, and teachers pack on your homework, and
I get frustrated very easily, and what frustrates me the most is authority. I do not like authority at all. I never have.
I usually get frustrated easily with myself if I don't do things just perfectly, because I'm a perfectionist.
Why I get frustrated is because, some people, really get on your nerves. They really want to annoy you, just, make you mad.
You won't remain silent, that you stand here beside me, and my heart won't call out in vain. So all I want is just to see you, Jesus, and I long just to hear your voice, and I need just to near you, 'cause your presence is all I want. And I come with a heart that is hungry, and I sing, wanting you just to know my love, and I pray that my life will be counted for the sake of your kingdom. My
Show. Those of you at home, you might not know who Jeff Day was. Let me explain it to you. Sonic Flood. You've heard of Sonic Flood. Well, you know, he founded Sonic Flood. He wrote almost all the songs you hear on them. Now, Sonic Flood's done almost 1 million records sold through the stores, and they've had a major impact on the church and just people's lives in praise and worship. And Jeff came out with a brand new CD. It's called Jeff Dale Saturate. Some of these songs, man, really bring you to the Lord big time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some intimate moments on the CD where people will just be driving down the road and they'll be singing this song. They'll have to pull off the road, just you know, seeking the Lord so much.
Stick around. We'll be right back here on the Al Denson Show. Yeah.
God does care that what things frustrate you, but I think He puts them there so you can grow stronger and that you can like build on to, you know, like because if there are little things that frustrate you, you get over that. There's going to be a bigger thing that frustrates you. And if you keep being, you know, not letting them frustrate you so much, He'll just, I think He'll bless you a lot.
I think God does care, but I know He cares because He loves us, and that hurts Him, like when we hurt and when we get frustrated. But at the same time, He puts things there to build character in us. And like, I know when I get really frustrated, and like if I go off on somebody or something, like what comes out of me, it shows me what's really, like what my heart truly is and how I truly feel about things.
You know, as we wrap up this edition of the Al Denson Show, man, we're just talking about frustration. Now, I realize that this entire show, you might have been sitting there listening to everything we said, but you're frustrated because you got this pen and paper out and you're sitting there trying to figure out where in the world that other dollar go. Because, see, they paid $10 for the room. Then I gave them $1 back a piece, so that means 10 minus 1 is 9, so they paid $9 for the room. There was 3 of them in there, so 9 times 3 is 27, plus the $2 that the guy kept was 29. I ask you, where's that 30th dollar? And now you're screaming at the TV going, I don't know. I'll tell you. No, they didn't pay $30 for the room. Remember, they paid 25. So 9 times 3 is 27 minus the $2 they kept is 25. That's where the other dollar went. I gave it to you in reverse. So now you don't have to be all frustrated, but you know what? It's still important how we handle frustration. Now, did y'all get that figured out? Did y'all get that figured out? Okay.
I have no idea what you just said.
I'm glad you're totally frustrated. That makes it that much better. So anyway, but I ask you this. Since you're there, hold on. The Bible had to be full of characters, Dave Edwards, of many, many people who are frustrated. Right. And you know, a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing, I always go to the Bible because I know I'm going to get a straight answer. Yeah. How did people in the Bible deal with frustration?
You know, one of the great characters in the Bible is a guy named Joseph who started out in prison and gets out of prison and goes to work for a guy named Potiphar in Genesis chapter 39 and is thrown back into prison in Genesis 40. And he thought he would never see prison again. And chapter 40 for Joseph was a time of frustration. And we're all going to go through our own chapter 40s.
So how did he handle it?
And what he did is he recognized frustration as to be God's course of preparation. It's the way God gets us ready for our destiny and His will in our life. He recognized that it's not God's punishment, it's God's preparation. Not only that, he refused to compromise. He didn't use his circumstances as a reason to do something crazy. And in the middle of that cell, when everyone had abandoned him, he requested courage, and he prayed this prayer: God, I choose to stay until you bring me out your way. And sure enough, promotion came, and in chapter 41, he becomes the second most powerful guy in the land. They slide the ring on his finger and ride him through the city. And here's the principle. In the Bible, 40 is a probationary number. And for every chapter 40 in our lives, there's a chapter 41. For every season of frustration, there's a season of fulfillment. And if you recognize this God's course of preparation and refuse to compromise and request courage, you'll live to see 41 come to pass.
So, Dave, does that mean that we will no longer be frustrated?
No, it just means that frustration is a season. And that season will come to an end, and we'll walk out of it better off, better men, better women, and there'll be another season somewhere else. And we'll walk through that season and say, this is 40, but 41 is coming.
Dave, thank you for being on the show. We're talking about frustration, and Jeff Dale, great job on the music. But listen, if you're still sitting there going, how in the world am I going to do this? I heard those 1, 2, 3s, but I just need a little more. Log onto the website. I want to give you this book free. It's called Facing Frustration. It's absolutely yours, and here's how you get it. You go to your computer, log on to www.aldenson.com, click on the TV icon, and you're going to see tons of different books. And as you go through all these books and begin to get frustrated, you will find one that says Facing Frustration. Click on it. 3 minutes later, you can start reading and understand the 1, 2, 3s that Dave was talking about, plus a lot more. Hey, listen, thank you so much for watching the Al Denson Show. Listen, you don't have to live in frustration, but if you could help me find that other dollar, I sure would appreciate it. Keep it tuned in. We'll be back next time right here on the Al Denson Show. Bye-bye.
We want to hear from you. Write us at The Al Denson Show, Box 220, Grapevine, Texas 76099. Or email us at aldenson@aol.com. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in next time to The Al Denson Show. The Al Denson Show is an outreach of Celebration Ministries.